Okay, so you look at the world right now and it's chaotic, right? We've got massive geopolitical shifts, crazy technological disruption, and all sorts of political uncertainty. You'd think that businesses would be hitting the brakes on their big sustainability goals. But something really surprising is happening, and that's what we're going to dig into, why so many companies, against all odds, are actually doubling down.
You know, there's this phrase that just hits the nail on the head for right now. Everything all at once. And man, doesn't that just perfectly capture this feeling of, well, of everything hitting us from every single direction? It's overwhelming.
All right, let's really set the stage here. We're talking about a global environment that is, honestly, more turbulent and unpredictable than anything most of us have ever lived through. And it's not just one crisis. It's like a domino effect, this cascade of problems, all tangled up together.
And the scale of this disruption, it is huge. We're seeing what experts are calling geopolitical tectonic rupturing, which is a fancy way of saying the very foundations of the global order are cracking. On top of that, you've got shaky trade deals, political instability, and, especially in the US, this backward slide from some environmental policies and a real rise in anti-ESG talk. You know, that's the pushback against environmental, social, and governance initiatives.
So, with all that pressure, you'd think the answer is obvious, right? Companies must be quietly ditching their climate commitments. I mean, it would be the easy way out, but that's just not what's happening.
And that right there brings us to the absolute core of this whole story, what we're calling the resilience pivot. See, companies aren't sticking with sustainability because it's the nice thing to do. They're doing it because they have to. It's no longer a box-ticking exercise. It's become a core survival strategy.
Just look at this shift. It's a total change in motivation. Before, it was all about external pressures, right? Government rules, looking good for the public. Now, it's all internal. It's urgent. It's not about PR anymore. It's about making sure your operations can actually survive the next crisis. It's gone from a want-to-have to an absolute must-have.
Okay, so what does a must-have really look like on the ground? Well, it means tackling some very real, very painful risks. Think about it. Where are you going to get those rare earth minerals for your electronics? How are you going to find long-term cost savings when inflation is through the roof? And maybe most important, how do you lock in a stable, affordable energy supply? These are the gut-level business problems that sustainable practices are suddenly the answer to.
And a huge strategy that's really taking off because of this is something called circular design. I mean, it just makes sense, right? In a world where everything is scarce and expensive, you have to design your products and your systems to eliminate waste from the very beginning. It's not just about being green anymore. It's about being smart with your money and your resources.
Now, here's where it gets really fascinating, because the politics around this stuff have gotten so polarized. Some companies are just changing the name. They're not calling it ESG anymore. Take JP Morgan. They poured over $1 billion into sustainability work, but they didn't call it that. They framed it as economic security. Same work, different label. It's a clever way to get the job done without getting caught in the political crossfire.
So, okay, resilience is the new goal, but how are they actually pulling it off? Well, the engine driving all of this is technology. But as we're about to see, this powerful engine, it's a bit of a double-edged sword.
All right, so how do businesses actually build this resilience? How do you go from a big idea in a boardroom to something that works in a factory? It's not about big, flashy announcements. It's all about using smart, practical tech.
You know, all the headlines are about flashy AI, but the real work, the biggest impacts are often coming from what you might call the quiet technologies. I'm talking about things like digital twins. This is amazing. You can literally build a virtual version of a factory to test everything out before you lay a single brick. Think of the waste and money that saves. Or edge computing. Instead of sending all your data to a massive, energy-guzzling cloud, you process it right there on site. It's faster and saves a ton of power. It's this kind of purposeful tech that's the real game changer.
And this quote just nails it. You cannot meet 2030 goals with 2010 systems. It's so true. The conversation has totally shifted. It's not about making promises anymore. It's about actually delivering on them. And you just can't do that with outdated tools. But, and this is a big but, here's the paradox of all this progress. The very tech that's supposed to help us has its own massive environmental footprint. This explosion in AI, it requires a mind-boggling number of data centers, and those things are incredibly thirsty for energy and water. So yeah, it's a classic double-edged sword that we absolutely have to figure out how to manage. Which leaves us to our final and maybe the most crucial piece of the puzzle. You can have the best technology in the world, but it's totally useless if you don't have the right people to use it. This whole thing is, at its heart, a human-led revolution.
And I love this quote, "Technology sets the pace, but people set the direction." It's perfect. Technology is the gas pedal for sure, but it's people, with their strategies and their talent, who are actually steering the car. So what does that mean? It means the smartest companies are investing just as much in their people as they are in their platforms. They're training them, building up their digital skills. They're breaking down those old department silos so people can actually collaborate. And maybe most importantly, they're building trust, making sure people actually believe in the data and the new systems they're being asked to use. And we really need to get our heads around this. These aren't just minor tweaks. What we're seeing is a historic shift. This is basically the start of a fifth industrial revolution. We're moving away from that old, linear model of take, make, and throw away to something that's way more connected and circular. We are fundamentally rethinking our entire relationship with resources. And so that leaves us with one last big thought to chew on. As these technologies, especially AI, get smarter and more autonomous, when they start acting as agents on their own, we have to ask ourselves a really tough question. In this new world we're building, who or what is actually in control?